I always say hello, hello twice, so I might do that again. Hello, hello. Welcome today. Just thinking, am I doing I've been doing starting a 5D storytellers thing. So I might call this 5D storytellers today. 5D storytellers and business weavers, something like that. Who knows? But yeah, it's good to have a chat with you today. I think I'll stick to 5D storytellers because that's kind of how we met and how we both work. I met you first on Shamanic Creativity Workshop I ran many moons ago, and you've recently just been out the other side of Channel Your Soul Story, and also doing a lot of big adventurous things yourself. So yeah, why don't you introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Cheryl. Yeah, so I'm Maria Smirovska. I'm an actor, um, a shamanic theater maker, a singer. I run workshops. I'm also a Reiki master, um, and yeah, basically I weave together spiritual and theatrical practices in my work, and and yeah, that's what I do in a
In a
nutshell.
nutshell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find it funny because I never really introduce myself and what I do, because labels are a funny thing. But when you think about it, and this is an important point because likewise, I'm an actress. I always say a spiritual actress, writer, producer, healer, soul guide, and creatrix of 5D theatre. But it's also quite a lot of labels, and I think most artists, whether they're spiritual or not, and I know that we both are, so we'll launch into the spiritual aspect of it all. Creating any kind of art or kind of work or movement means that you have a lot of roles. And
Mm,
I've been speaking to quite a few people about a lot of this because my heart is on activism as
mhm.
much as it is about storytelling. Both of those things are very important to me as someone that likes to bring the truth forward. And spiritual truth for me isn't always exactly like you'd expect it to be. It's not all like love and light there. Sometimes there's bigger messages to come through. But I also know that, we can be doing a lot. So all of the artists that I know, wear a lot of hats. They might run companies or create work or be producers. Like us, for example, we'll also work in healing realms as well and do different things on the side. And so, yeah, how do you find that your multi-layered roles weave into your work? And do you find that, like, as I name myself as spiritual, this, that, and the other, how do you navigate the spiritual aspect of yourself in your work?
That's a hard question.
Yeah, I know.
I actually hate labels. I do that as an introduction, and I've added labels to my email just because I find that people go, oh, and they can kind of name you. And if you're looking for something specific, it can help people. I mean, that's how I found shamanic creativity. I've been interested
I
in.
know. I
So
know.
it's
And I named it very specifically because I thought no one really names shamanic creativity. So it called in the right.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's just kind of like, so there's a part of me going, huh? And then there's a part of me going, well, that's kind of what I'm looking for. So there's someone who's doing something. Oh, what can I learn, from them? And how can I start naming my thing? So I think it's a process we all have, because I think, within myself, I have no labels. I'm just a being. I just do what I do. I don't need to call it shamanic theater, or just an actress, or just a singer, or whatever. It's just like I just do what comes, and that's who I am. But I think for communicating with the outside world, we sort of need them. Or
Mm.
maybe just in this paradigm that we're in now, maybe that will shift and maybe we won't need that. But for now, that's why we have so many. Maybe it's like, I do this and this and this. So for now, it's just kind of a way of going, well, that's who I am, and how I can try and share my identity, with others. But I'm not fixed to it inside myself, and I find it kind of unnecessary, really. It's just what for me as important as what I do when I'm in the space with others or with myself. It's like in that moment of creation, lots of different things come in. I'm talking about like, you know, if you're devising a piece or working on something or running a workshop or a class. But I think, yeah, we need like the labels or the naming is a tool
Yeah.
to connect to others. And what we're doing now is, you know, we have screens and words, so we need that to reach others through the physical and through the mind, so we can get to the spiritual. Maybe that is,
Yeah. Well, I kind of say that I took it on to label myself as a spiritual something or a soulful. And I find the word spiritual tricky because it
yeah.
can mean so many different things. So sometimes I change it to soul because it's like I don't want everyone around me to have the same beliefs. But I
Mm,
guess by naming it, what I'm doing is bring it into every room I work, every process I work,
mm,
so that it's always there. And why I mean that is like, you know, we open up our body as artists, we open up our mind, you know, open up physically, that's what we're doing,
mm,
open up our imagination. And my why I call it 5D theatre is because it's the multidimensionality of it. So it's an invitation to open up to spirit, whatever spirit is to you, and to bring that through and bring that in the space. And I know that's the stories that I write about, but also allow that to touch my audiences and anyone that comes to work with me to go, how can we make life more interesting?
mm,
Because in my training, when I opened up to all these dimensions, I became a better artist. I became more in flow state. I became more knowledgeable about what this paradigm is really about. So I like to do that for others. So it's not naming it to shut it down, it's to expand it and open it up. And I think labels can often sort of put us in boxes, but actually the spiritual ones, not to go, well, if you're spiritual, you have to do this, this, and this. It's like, no, if you're naming spirit, it's like open up to unlimited possibilities.
yeah. Maybe it has to do with the intention then behind the words, and maybe that's what opens up the space. So I think that has a lot to do with it. So it's if you're not thinking I'm closing down, but I'm opening up, then that's what it is creating,
Mm, yeah.
possibly. I mean, I feel that has something to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and to navigate the second question is about how do you find that that's because you're called shamanic theatre, how do you find that your shamanic practice feeds into your theatre? How does it work with it?
Um, I think I'm still searching for that, just quite honestly. I don't have it down and this is my process and method and this is what I do. I think
Yeah.
I'm still looking. And so, you know, I'm still kind of like, I'll take shamanic drumming and I'll go, I have, you know, a bit of land and I'll go work there. And so, for example, whatever comes through can be a stimulus for writing, for example, something, or for movement and song to come through. It's a great way in. It can also be part of, I think, you know, a performance. So definitely something like that, like working with journeying, with drumming, because the drum just opens up. It facilitates an altered state of consciousness. It opens up so much. So it's a great start or portal entry into work, I think. Um, Movement and music are things that, you know, I think for me that they're also portals, kind of shamanically, because they bypass the mind. I can really kind of get my mind out of the way when I enter my body. And something I think I started doing a couple of years ago is just moving without music, without anything. It's just moving with the land. So being, you know, I don't know, on a hilltop or in a forest or in a beach or whatever, and just responding to the elements, whatever they are, whatever the weather. And I find that really feeds the practice as well. I love doing that as well. I find that in and of itself is something that can be, a piece or part of something, but also as a way in. And always singing to wherever the space is, with intention or not. That's just something that is a big tool, I think, for me, and that can really access, other realms or spaces within, without. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting to hear you speak on that. And yeah, the basically very similarly, and it's kind of what I've taught on Channel Your Soul Story about what happened to me, because I don't think you start consciously. Like the reason I started this at all is because I went into the rehearsal room and started to bring my shamanic drums in and take people on journeys. And I wasn't doing it to go, well, let's use this practice back then. I was doing it because I was training over here and finding that this was a great way to access portals and open up, bigger experiences and stop any kind of blocking or being too much in the mind or too much in the logic and the thinking, which we're so programmed to do everything from. And the space of the creative is
Yeah.
like the space of the spiritual person. They interweave so much because it's about expansion. And I remember bringing that into shamanic creativity back then, about like movement and changing the space and interacting. And I think anybody that's got like a healing practice and it's also a creative, a spiritual creative, which is kind of the community I love to speak of, because I don't feel we have enough spaces to explore who we are in all that multidimensionality. It's about bringing all the practices that work for you
Mm.
and exploring that, and perhaps not setting it has to be this practice,
Yeah.
but knowing that what works. Like for me, I need to re-explore the ending of my play, and I'm going to go back to my origin practice of past life regression and going into scenes and storytelling, and that's how I'm going to build it. But also know that I need some of that healing work to figure out who I am today and why I'm writing stories today, because I started 7 years ago, so my practice needs to evolve and change and move with me.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to invite all that in, that as a spiritual creative, that you spoke very similar to what I do, and also why I teach it, to go, look, here are all these tools, use all of these tools, but use what works for you, but make sure. I'm particularly, maybe you can speak into this a bit, I'm particularly passionate about saying that healing should be part and parcel of your storytelling. Because if you're going to open up a story, most of us, if not all of us artists, you have material that comes from our soul, comes from our inner self, comes from our life story, comes from our past life. It doesn't matter where it comes from. It comes from our downloads. And to bring that work forward in a beautiful and divine way can often be quite difficult for the actual artist that's bringing that story forward. We don't tend to bring in stories of they're quite, they're big story, dramatic, it's called drama for a reason. And so I always encourage people to use healing as part of that process. And I've actually always done that myself. When I was starting out as an artist, I had to go off and train as a Reiki healer because so much was happening to me. So what would you say, what healing space has a part of your practice too, and how important do you think it is to do the work?
I think it's super important to do the work. I don't think I named that before, but it's funny when you speak of it. When I think back to my kind of past theater training, um, and being in the spiritual closet, because I didn't really, that was a separate thing. It was always like, I've got kind of a spiritual thing over here, but then I've got the theater thing, and they're not together. And so this is a whole journey of kind of going, yes, they can be. And, I've had you and other people going, yes, they can be together. So I think that's part of the healing journey already for me personally, because that's like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, they are. And I think I'm exploring that more and more through like, different workshops, courses, and also like I've got a radio show on Telegram where I'm doing things like sharing different things like meditation techniques or practice various practices, which once upon a time I think I would have been like, this has nothing to do with theater, it's more technical than that. Because I started very much from the outside in. So it was technique, it was form. I did Jacques Lecoq in Paris, which is very form. You're working with, you've also got like working with objects, but you're also really, miming in a way. And so it's very much observing the outside world and putting that form on yourself and that. And then I did the training with Song of the Goat Theater, which was the other way. It was going in and coming out. And I think since then, everything just really shifted for me. And I went, I like this way. It's much deeper. And it was a huge process, in terms of healing, in terms of going within and bringing out and lots of emotions and sharing, in a space together with others. And I think kind of since that point, it's like you can't do creative work without the healing work. And I think I actually always had that because I've always done various types of therapy going, and I didn't do it because, oh gosh, I'm really messed up. I think I was doing it because it's like, well, this is feeding me and I'm getting to know more and deeper inside myself and inside, humanity. And it was a way of learning and deepening the process. So I think it's absolutely vital if you want to reach others in a more authentic and kind of deeper felt way, because you go through it yourself, you feel it yourself, you heal certain aspects and then you can get them. And in the process, like the last show I did, I know it was extremely difficult because it was like going into traumas and then going, okay, now I have to share that. I feel very vulnerable and very exposed, but at the same time, it's like I did it, and maybe someone out there, who saw that resonated and was touched and was able to take something and go, wow, and and it creates that little ripple, and you hope, I don't know, you can turn on a light somewhere, or maybe it'll help someone see something or make a shift. So yes, I think by kind of, I saw this beautiful quote somewhere, going through the crucible of our own alchemy is essential, because then you can spark that for others. So that's my long-winded answer.
It made me think about two things that I just want to name that you have static on your line. So we're working through this.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope everyone can still pick up the beautiful stuff that you're bringing through. But they're also about bringing that healing and what that activates in others. Because, the audience, I spend a lot of time thinking about my audience as a theatre maker, which I didn't used to do before I created work. Lockdown happened and I had to think much more about what I was doing my art for. So it changed my process. Whereas I think you start understanding what stories you need to tell. And then I sort of moved into what stories does the world need to hear? And now I'm at this new process where I'm like, what does the divine want me to do? What is really divinely aligned with my soul's purpose in the now, as in, if there's a legacy I'm trying to leave behind, what does that need to be? It's got a bit grander than me. And every process that I've gone through with that has helped me stay more aligned. That's why I do it, not because, it's a bit like when you realize when you're doing anything, you ask, how can I serve? Rather than, I think when you're an artist and you're training, you're falling apart and you're going into all these deep emotional journeys and you're just a bit like, how can I be okay? It's the only question you can ask. So you can't back then ask, how can I serve in some ways? And I will say that there's a perpetual thing in the industry that I just wanted to name there, especially in acting, where it's a little bit like they're breaking someone down to put a piece together. And some parts of the industry do present a sort of outside process that you were talking about that puts on techniques and makes this polished product. And, if you don't know different methods exist, you wouldn't know that you're being put together as a package, and that does sell. It is commercially very viable. I used to work in casting, so I could see these packages and what people would want. But actually for me, oh my God, to see a performance come from this raw, space of this only that person could have expressed it in that way and in that rawness, and then adding on spirit weaving through that. And that's what I found. That's why I trained with Song of the Goat, because when I watched Song of the Goat performers, I felt they were weaving the light through their performance. And I was watching this thing that I'd never seen in theatre before and went, who are these people and what are they doing? And back then, I wasn't trained in angelic regulation, so I had no clue, but I just knew that they were doing something multi-dimensional, but I didn't have the words for it. So it was, I think perhaps that style of training got us both on the path to make quite different theatre, because we realized there could be more. And I think that's, that was our souls plonking us in that situation. Because I know for me, I would have gone, I'm a casting director. What do you mean? I need to get to RADA, or I need to get to here, and I need to tick the boxes and do the conventional way. And that's how you get a career. That's what I was thinking. And I was like, what do you mean I'm in this room doing this different stuff? And so I want to take that beginning part of the journey and then jump to the middle as a storyteller and sort of speak about, because I think there's quite a few people out there wanting to do things differently, wanting to put their spirituality in their art and their creativity, wanting storytelling to be different, wanting anywhere that they share space to be different. And I know that I'm trying to do something very different and feels very big and ambitious with 5D theatre. Sometimes I'm like, oh God, how? And so where you are now, what is it that you're trying to do differently? And what are you currently co-creating, I want to say, with others? What are you bringing in on the lands?
Just I feel like everything I do is doing something differently. I've never really followed a mainstream path. Like I didn't do loads of castings and try to get into TV or film. But now with this added kind of spiritual element, I think it's really about weaving the two together. But it's really also kind of like, I don't know if I'm quite there yet of being in service, but I am definitely feeling I'm definitely in service to working with the earth. And I think that's a theme that's always been there, kind of environmentally, but in a more conscious way now. Yeah, so it's really kind of how to do that, how to work with like ley lines very consciously and bring that through. And so I'm currently creating a festival, which is a new thing for me, and I don't quite know where the seed for that came from. It happened at the end of last year sometime, and I just thought, huh. And I think why is because for me the concept of community is super super important, and I know we can't do things on our own. That's impossible, and so I think I'm calling in a tribe through this, just quite honestly. So I'm curating a festival. I have a bit of land in a forest in Poland, and it's completely off-grid because I'm starting with what I have, which is a bit of land, and so it's kind of taking all these practices I do on my own and other ones that I want to learn from and bringing them together physically in a space with others to share, and it's really, I think for me, it's really about sending out a vibration, a signal, a frequency of harmony, of creativity, of resilience, of empowerment, of love, out into the world. So yeah, I've met just new people kind of coming into my life. So I have someone who works with nature spirits, someone who's working with Tai Chi. There'll be working with sound, a sound bath, kind of in nature. I'm working on a new show. So this is a new thing, new theme. It might just be a work in progress at this point, but that's all right. It's, just kind of wanting to do that. So to share a new way of creating theater. And I want to see what that brings together when people come together with this kind of spiritual and creative aspect, to see who comes, who gathers, and what we can create together outdoors at the moment without a space. So what's possible really like working in a forest, because it's a forest.
So is the idea that it's to attract performers or creators, or is it for anybody? Are they creating theatre while they're there, or are they witnessing or being led through healing
It's
practice and
at the
theatre?
moment it's for anyone. I would love performers and creatives to be there as well. Because I would obviously love to meet people I could collaborate with in future. That would be wonderful. But it's open for anyone who's kind of curious and open, because it's about creating a community, and the people I've got as facilitators, it's amazing. Each one of them has several gifts, and it's like, oh gosh, I don't need more. Everyone can do so many things. That's wonderful. So what can we share? What can we create together? And so yeah, at the moment it's very open, but I have a kind of, it's part of a bigger vision.
Yep. And the bigger vision is?
The bigger vision is, calling it shamanic theater for now, which is that as a container. So this is one of the offshoots, is like festivals and gatherings, which have something for the mind, for the body, for the heart, for the soul, for the imagination. So different elements that weave together. So it's kind of, I guess, it's as a first, like, kind of R&D or testing ground and trialing of what happens, because I've never done this before. It's like I've done theater, but I've never done, or I've done, spirituality. Now it's like, okay, I'm putting them together with different types of people who aren't just performers. They're creative in different ways, or they're spiritual, and just, I want to really see how they weave together on the ground. And it's kind of a, ooh, what's going to happen in this cook pot? And I want to see what comes of it. So it's kind of a, but I feel it'll be really rich. Like, I already feel everyone's got a really lovely energy and openness, and it's going to be very interesting. And then hopefully it will lead to more. And the idea is to, I'm calling the festival Activate. So it's really also working with this new Earth grid. So the change that's happening on our planet. And so activating the land and the people coming together in that spot, because it's actually on a ley line. It's a spot with a lot of energy. So to see how that affects people, because I know when I go there, like, I feel recharged, I feel a lot of energy. And so to share that with others, again, that's about sending that vibration when we come together. And to see how that affects creativity and people's work, and just, I don't know, I think it's going to be very magical. And so it's really, I mean, I like the word magic because it feels very magical. And I think I've got this song that keeps running through my head lately by Rising Appalachia. It's just called Make Magic, and the words are, what are we going to do with the wickeds of the world? Make magic, make magic, make magic. And I'm just like, that's kind of a mantra that's running through my head. It's like, what are we going to do? Because, you look around sometimes, it can get, and I'm like, no, make magic, make magic. That's the reply, that's the response. So I want to make some magic with this. And later I want to have a theater, not necessarily on this land, but maybe elsewhere. But I want to continue creating gatherings of different sorts, of bringing spiritual, creative people together to make magic, to make magic, to make magic.
Yeah, it really echoes of the workshop at the weekend that I run, putting magic back in the hands of healers
Yes.
and farmers. And it's
It's
like,
so important though, yeah.
we've got to reclaim the magic because the darker forces have taken the magic, and when you look around, you go, okay. And I know it's we've spelled in all different areas of our lives, and it's like, what are we going to do about it? And yeah, I love that. I can see that vision, and I think I'm going through a very similar trajectory of what am I going to do that's bigger than me. And it's like I got this trilogy of plays that feels very prominent for me to get going on in the next year. It's like they need to culminate into something now. I did a channeling, and I got the whole beginning, middle, and end for the third play, and I was like, what? Came
Wow.
out like that after I did this little regression, and I thought, once again, it's there, it's obviously there going, hello, I'm here. So, and I was like, oh, there's no way I could get onto the third one this year. And it was like, you've just written it in a very short beginning, middle, and end. I was like, okay, maybe I can. And at the same time, I think I love my own storytelling, because I was part of an artist that never felt like anyone like me was represented in the world, in the theatre. I don't hear my voice. I don't feel represented as a spiritual person. I don't feel represented as a witch, a healer, and what really happened to me in my part. I don't hear my story being told. You know, I'm writing about transhumanism and the sanctity of the soul. I don't hear that story being told. And you know, I need this voice. I need it. And I know that other people do, because I've started to connect with other people that, you know, I've heard quite a few similar stories now. And I'm like, you're making that? Yes, you're making that. I've really been connecting with other filmmakers and artists that are very much on about the sanctity in the soul. And I'm all about activating souls through watching these stories, but also trying to help others to create their own work. And it doesn't have to be, you know, it's whatever their stories are. And it's been very exciting for me to see in the last two gatherings of Channel Your Soul Story course, to hear, I heard your work, I had other people's work. On the last course, you know, I heard people like channeling stories and bringing different messages through. And it was just so exciting, because I had a big dream, like you're talking about, your bigger vision a while ago. Well, can I eventually change theatre so that there's space for my stories? And then also bring in these other people and help other people to tell their stories by mentoring or courses, but even scratch nights and different R&D processes where other artists can come in. And, you know, as long as it's got spirituality at its seed, at its essence, and that's just a search of something bigger, as long as it's trying to bring something truthful through, something that can activate and awaken the consciousness, then that's all it needs. That's, you know, and to bring that through felt like, on one hand, I couldn't just do my stories. I needed to help the community do theirs, because I've been feeling this a lot lately, that we are a very marginalized group, spiritual people. We've been persecuted throughout the ages as the heretics, as the witches, as the healers, as the truthers, so many times of speaking our spiritual truth. And we've either been told it's lies, or it's not the done thing, or that you have to look to a different God that's in this book over here, and that you're not, you know, and that's not the truth. And I hear it again and again and again. And I'm like, my belief is that everybody is spiritual, because we've got spirit in matter. And it's like now proven, you know, if we need to follow quantum physics or science or whatever, I don't need that. But if we take all of that, and our soul essence has been harmed, and it's always looking to be harmed if we're not careful about how to protect it and nurture it and know that we have it, then there's nothing more important than the story of the soul. Nothing more important and precious. So any way I can help get those stories out of me, in mine, and other people bringing their work forward, is just what lights my soul on fire at this time. And so, yeah, it's a great joy that we connected a while ago, and I was like, keep going, there's a need for your work, you know, do that. And to hear your bigger vision, because I think I remember in a session we had one-to-one ages ago that I already saw it this big. I already saw the festivals laying out. I already saw you developing your own work, and I've seen some of your theatre work a few times, you know, and it's been a pleasure to connect with it, because you're creating in different ways. And whenever I've seen it, it feels shamanically infused, whether you even name it or not. I feel you working with the land. I hear your songs. I hear your spirit communing through it anyway. I've witnessed all of that. And like other people have said to me, I got soul activation when I come to see your work, or I remembered that I was this person, or, you know, so bigger things are happening than we can ever even dream or contemplate that are coming in. And so, for the practical sense, when is your festival?
Oh, practically. It's in August. 16th to the 18th of August. I can send you a link or something if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
and I'll post it in.
Yeah, thank you. Um, I just wanted to say something to what you were saying. Yeah, it's funny that not just Well, yeah, persecution, even in small ways of kind of spirituality, it's always been kind of laughed at, I feel, like in the arts, often it's like, oh, I don't know, you're like hippie woo woo or just strange words. There's a naming and a judgment if you're openly kind of spiritual. So I didn't find a lot of people. There was a lot of kind of rationalism behind an not academia, but just kind of the logical mind in a way taking over. It's funny to say that, but it's just now from kind of the perspective that where I'm at now and the way you work, it just seems very yeah, like books and old theories and practices and the way it's done, but there was never kind of mention of spirit or words like channeling or downloading. But actually, I think most artists, when they really let go and let, kind of flow, then they are channeling and it is spiritual. I'm reading Stephen Pressfield, who wrote The War of Art and like Turning Pro and all these kind of books for creativity. They're kind of inspiring and motivational. And I haven't read him in years, that I picked it up again the other day and I went, oh my gosh, I wish I had the quote now, but it's something about we're all angels in this physical vessel. And I'm like, everything he's writing, yes, it's got the self-help, go, don't give up artist, and you're creative, but it's also extremely spiritual, everything he's saying. And I was like, oh, I didn't quite get that in the same way as now. So I think it's there, but it's not acknowledged freely. It's still kind of, shh, you're spiritual. Keep that under your hat. Don't talk about that. But it's there, and I think it needs to be acknowledged and brought out into the open and worked with consciously, because as you're saying, like the dark forces have taken over a lot of that. So we need to bring that back consciously so we can shed light, more on what needs to have light shed on it.
Yeah, and I wanted to say about that I've always been an advocate of speaking the unspoken in my spaces, that actually we address. I set up 5D theatre, like a free meeting group monthly over lockdown, so that I could keep encouraging. Did you come to any of those? I'm not sure, but people to just go, okay, let's get into a space and just speak. If we need encouragement with your art, I'll help you. Or that was kind of how it started. And then I made spiritual creative groups and then started to run the workshops, which is probably met you then. And then it was very much about just bringing people together, that because I used to think art and theatre was so radical and so free, and I'd be like, wow, these spaces, I felt at home because it felt like anything went. And then I kind of changed my mind and realized that it was still a lockdown paradigm in some ways. And there were still people that were getting shoved to the corners and to the outskirts and being cast out for, you might have felt it with spirituality, that we still silence that. But I feel that other things are being silenced massively in different spaces and places. And, it makes me sad, because it feels like the old spiritual persecution wounds are coming up again to be healed and cleared. And I think I kind of want to speak into about going forward and the change that we want to be in the world, as we had the start and the middle and going to the end, about the bigger vision for what we both hope theatre can be and what we both wanting to create it to be.
Well, I want magic.
Every day.
Every day. No, I really do. I've experienced, a bit with some theater, like Song of the Goat that I've seen, or Derevo, which is a Russian theater company that worked a lot with Buto and kind of clown and dark absurdists. They're Russian. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they were also an extremely powerful kind of influence on me. I was very young. I was like 20, 21 when I did like a month-long workshop with them. So some things were way kind of over my head, but touched me in a way that, it still resonates within me. That was the first time I kind of went to theater and I went, what just happened, something tangible. It wasn't just I'm going to analyze this play or whatever, but it was the whole audience sat there in complete stillness for 10 minutes after the show. So something that deep had transpired, and I was like, oh, how do you do that? What is that? What's the magic? Because they had it, and then Song of the Goat was another one where I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know how to talk about this, but something has really touched me in a very kind of deep way. So what do I want? I want something that kind of, in a way, following that thread, but going deeper. I want transformation, not just catharsis, but I want people to kind of come in and things to shift so much that, that, I don't know, they leave seeing the world in a different place, feeling the world in a different place, kind of more awakened, more human, more heart, opening hearts, really, really, really. So that when people kind of go through a journey of a play, I think each play, each show kind of is a journey to come out the other side enriched, but also, I don't know, it's something that can help them catalyze themselves and things in their lives. So to make, to make a difference. Um, I think that's it. It's really connecting hearts and souls and opening people, making people aware that there is magic and that we do have the power to create that, to experience that, to share that, to make a difference. So how do you do that? Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking about it because my sort of work has been weaved through a trilogy, and I think because of where I've been at, doing different things with different stories. So Awaken, the first one, is very much about, speaking up for magic that was taken out of the hands of healers and why we're in this mess
Yeah.
and given to harmers, and why, things really happen, but also understanding ourselves on a soul level, because it was my journey into past life regression and seeing why I was hung for being a witch, which was a vision that I saw. And, why did I need to know that? And it brought me back to the mystical soul that I am. And so it's giving a voice to that witch that never got heard back then. And I'm giving her a voice today. But then I moved into creating work that's very much about exposure of ways that we can really have our soul harmed, just shining a light on, some of the fallen paradigms that harm humanity through particularly transhumanist agenda, and the very ease of, if we don't acknowledge that we're a soul having this human experience, then somebody can take our soul. That's a really important. There's a danger, I feel, that we might move into a soul loss society. And soul loss happens through so many things. It happens through war and layering people with these different karmic programmings. And it happens when we sell our souls down the river and we don't even realize. And it happens through death programming and the way that we don't see the death process as, a beautiful, nourishing process of the soul's journey. Happens in so many ways. So it's a bit of a call out for the mental health crisis that we're in, and looking at why we're made to feel like we do. So it kind of moved into levels of exposure and looking at the truth of something to help us to align. And then my third play is very much about weaving into a utopian reality and a dystopian reality, and realizing that we are the master creators, and our dreams are weaving these realities into being. And our dreams have been captured and harvested, and how we work with our own divine consciousness to create this new earth, and the power that we are, and how much we've been locked down, trapped, segregated, and pushed apart, especially with the masculine and feminine. And I'm trying to bring those back into dream the new way into being. So yeah, it's quite a journey. And as I write this work and bring this work out, I go through the biggest activation so that I can bring it through and sort of teach it and show it through my work. And that's why I run, things and courses and a lot of stuff alongside to kind of bring that activation I've had through. But I really do dream of like putting this on as a big weekend where everyone could experience the whole of my soul's life over a weekend. And also having so many more conscious creatives around me, so many different works, and there's no limits to creativity. There's no tick boxes that you have to fill. If what story you need to tell is the story that you need to tell. And so I want to smash apart the paradigm. That is my biggest dream. So that the avenues are open for everyone, that it's not so hard for artists to make work. You know, I speak as a working class artist, having to, you know, smash different walls down in my own mind and in society. It's not just us, you know, we have things working against us, but also that all voices are heard, and it's not just a current flavor of, well, this one's been marginalized, so now we're going to shine. That if we come back to the beginning of our course, those kind of labels dissolved a bit. And I know it's hard, and I know that we still need labels, and, you know, I'm not working against that, but that we're in a place where we're like, but what's the biggest soul story that needs to come through? And that's what's heard for everybody, because it doesn't really matter about your race or your sex or any of that. It's like, what is the biggest story that you need to tell at this time? And that's so important to me, because I meet so many people, and it's how I mentor people. But I sit and I listen, and I'm like, is that really the story you need to tell? Are you going to tell that story, or are you going to get busy in life? Because so many artists tell other people's stories. You know, that is what you're taught as an actor, to pick up a script and tell somebody else's story. And while that's important, if it's your passion and your craft or how you make money, I would say the bigger dream is telling your own story is the most beautiful act of the divine dance that you can do, because then you're in your truth and your integrity, and then you're sharing something that will feel like you've ripped so many layers of skin off, and you'll stand there naked in front of the world. But this is what the world needs: our integrity, our truth, and to show a little bit of the soul on stage. So that's what I want in theatre.
That's epic too.
I know. And now I'm going to write my business plan. How to do that.
Yeah. Step one.
Step one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because it's epic, and I hope our conversation has sparked dream weaving and joy creating in other people, I would love to close with a bit of a dream weave meditation. And I'm going to guide one, but if you'd like to close it out, then you're welcome to. Or if you'd rather experience it, you tell me, what would you rather?
Oh, I don't know. I think I might want to experience it.
Experience it. Absolutely. Then let's create a dream for you and everybody else that needs it. Yeah, so perfect. Come back into the body. And I will say, this is a beautiful way, if you create work, to open and close the work with meditation. And I often find, and I'm saying this as an artist and a healer, that people don't tend to close out work as well as they open it. Me too. So I will close us out fully at this end of this conversation. But first, I'm just going to ignite a bit of a dream in everybody's body. And that dream is always in our higher heart, which is in the chest space, underneath the throat, by the thymus gland, which is also our immunity and our super gland. So if we're well, we have the energy to make the work that we want to. So I want you to charge this thymus gland up with a lot of light and energy from the universe, from source, from God, goddess, all that is consciousness that is wanting you to do your work at this time. And I want you to be infused with your own magical light, a golden elixir throughout the body. And let that light drop down into your womb space. And you don't need to just be a woman to have this womb. Let's call this the creation space at the bottom of the body. And this is just a dark space of no thing. Before anything is created, it needs to start with a spark of light, a consciousness, an electrifying moment of, and then we begin, and it sparks something else, and it creates, and it bursts. So I'm going to go quiet for a few moments while you feel into this dark space at the bottom of your body and see what wants to be sparked, an epiphany. But maybe you've been grabbing epiphanies from your mind. Try and grab one from the body. What would I like to create? And also asking that question, maybe into your heart space, what's in the way? And now linking in with the divine mind, which is our stellar gateway, the 9th chakra, that has a connection with all that is, unlimited possibility. Now ask, how am I going to do that bigger vision? And you can get an epiphany drop from the divine consciousness. And finally gathering up all the light from the divine gateway, from source, from your super soul. Opening up your crown and letting that flood down your body and anchoring into the earth underneath your feet. And with that momentum, asking for the action and the energy and the light to drive your projects, your festival, your play, your theatre, your soul, your story, your work forward at this galvanizing time on the earth. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, lovely to share space with you today. Is there anything you want to say before I close this out?
No, I just want to thank you for having me on, and for whoever's listening, thank you for tuning in, and I hope there was some inspiration had today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for your land work. I'm hearing you know not what you do. So yeah, there'll be some growing seeds are being planted. Absolutely. I can see them all. So yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much.
Thanks very much.